First bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 550. Clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 550, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to natural resources, the third engrossment.
I call upon the member from Crow Wing to introduce his bill. Representative Heintzeman, would you like to put the House language in before you present your bill?
I would. I would move first to insert the House language. That is my amendment.
Clerk will report the amendment.
Heintzeman moves to amend Senate File number 550, the third engrossment, as follows. The amendment is coded DEA 1265.
I call upon the author of the amendment to introduce the amendment.
Mr. Speaker, this is just some cleanup language, some things we needed to do to make the bill work, and I'd appreciate a green vote, please.
Discussion to the amendment. Seeing none, all those in favor of the DEA 1265 amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. Representative Heintzeman, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment is technical. This will change the effective date to 2017 appropriations in this bill. My apologies, Mr. Speaker. Before you today, I have the much anticipated LCCMR bill, House File 1265. Before I explain the bill, I would quickly like to thank the LCCMR staff. They're in the enclave. I'd like to mention that I really appreciate their availability as the legislative process began some months ago. This bill spends just over $59 million over the coming biennium on scores of projects across the state. It helps to fund a significant project, CREP, the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. CREP is a targeted conservation easement program that will help address the concern many farmers have with the governor's buffer law. That being that they are not compensated for their land being taken out of production, and CREP will compensate approximately 90% of the value of land enrolled in a permanent easement. CREP will also be used for wellhead protection, another priority issue for many people in this chamber. In January, Governor Dayton signed the CREP agreement with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and with this agreement, a state investment of $150 million will leverage $350 million from the federal government. This agreement was signed well after the LCCMR had made its recommendations, and not knowing what's going to happen in D.C. during the next budget cycle, we think it's important to secure as much of that federal match as soon as possible. To get that money, we would have to get as much money as we could for CREP. We decided not to fund a number of projects recommended by the LCCMR, as CREP is a high priority. In total, there's approximately $18 million for easements. There's also $6 million that was in the original LCCMR recommendations for SWCDs to assist landowners that participate in CREP. Other highlights in the bill include $3.7 million for the County Geologic Atlas work continuation, $400,000 for groundwater contamination mapping. In Representative Eklund's district, $293,000, to study the effects of wolf predation on beaver, moose, and deer. $263,000 for assessing the impact of household chemicals and herbicides on rivers and lakes. $500,000 for water quality monitoring in southern Minnesota trout streams. $300,000 for a joint project between the University of St. Thomas, and the Department of Natural Resources to reassess the toxicity of petroleum spills in groundwater and surface waters. Don't worry, members, I'm almost wrapping it up. $1.2 million for a project connecting youth to Minnesota waterways through outdoor classrooms. I'm also happy to mention a $500,000 project, the Minneopa State Park acquisition in Representative Clark Johnson's district. I'm told the bison need the space. $2.7 million to help the Aquatic Invasive Species Research Center in the University of Minnesota to continue its fine work researching aquatic invasive species. These are just a few highlights of the many projects funded through this LCCMR bill. With that introduction, I look forward to a debate, and I will happily stand for questions.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Heintzeman moves to amend Senate File Number 550, the third engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A11.
Call upon the member from Crow Wing to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a technical amendment that will change the effective date to the 2017 appropriations in this bill. I apologize for earlier mixing up the timing on the amendment.
Discussion to the A11 amendment. Seeing none, all those in favor of adoption of the A11 amendments, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. There is another amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Hansen moves to amend Senate File Number 550, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A1.
I call upon the member from Dakota, Representative Hansen, to report his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Representative Heintzeman talked about some of the changes that were made to the LCCMR bill. This is Minnesotans' lottery dollars. And I think it's important, Mr. Speaker and members, when we're talking about what was put into the bill, we also recognize what was taken out of the bill. And there seems to be a pattern whenever the Republicans are in charge with the LCCMR, with the lottery dollars. If something has the word climate in it, it's taken out. If something deals with solar, it's taken out. If something deals with lead, it's taken out. And if something deals with science, scientific and natural areas, acquisitions for natural regions, it's taken out. So the A1 amendment is restoring acquisitions. And I would ask for a roll call on the A1 amendment.
A roll call being requested, and seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I know there are folks on the other side of the aisle that are sensitive, I guess, to say, about acquisitions. But I think some of that sensitivity is on acquisitions in areas of their districts. The A1 amendment restores Metropolitan Regional Park System land acquisition. It restores scientific and natural area acquisition and restoration. It restores state parks and trails acquisition. And it restores native prairie stewardship and prairie bank easement acquisitions. We don't have much prairie, native prairie left in Minnesota. And the dollars that are spent, the limited dollars that are spent on these acquisitions are getting the best to be retained. So I would ask members to look at restoring these fee title acquisitions back into the LCCMR. The Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program is a worthy program. However, the governor did recommend $30 million in capital investment for the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. That's traditionally where those dollars have come from. These scientific and natural areas, parks, trails, and prairie banks are a good investment, and I would ask you for your support for the amendment.
Discussion to the A1 amendment. Member from Crow Wing, Representative Heintzeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, just a quick note. The governor made a number of recommendations in regard to the funding of CREP, and that included the Clean Water Fund as well as a number of other locations. And I think that CREP is an appropriate place. I think the LCCMR is an appropriate place to place some CREP funding. So that's what we're doing. I'd appreciate a no vote on the amendment, please.
Further discussion to the A1 amendment. Member from Hennepin, Representative Wagenius.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't think it's right at all to imply that the governor wanted CREP money taken out of LCCMR. What the governor wanted, what the governor proposed, was putting $30 million of bonding in for CREP. $30 million. But there's only 10 now. So the missing 20 is essentially taking it from this package. And I just want to mention a couple of things about this package. It was a compromise package because there were folks representing, or there were folks with lots of different opinions on LCCMR, both legislators and citizens. But the one other thing that the legislators and citizens do in putting the package together is to balance the projects among all the regions of the state. Very careful to make sure that every community has the same opportunities that every other community has. And that's one of the strengths of the LCCMR process. And I would urge members to vote for Representative Hansen's amendment.
Further discussion to the A1 amendment. Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I do want to point out Representative Hansen made the statement that there are people on this side of the aisle that have issues with regards to acquisitions. I can state unequivocally that there are people on the other side of the aisle that have issues with acquisitions as well. Thank you.
Further discussion. A roll call being requested. The clerk will take the roll on the amendment. Clerk will close the roll. There being 68 ayes and 73 nays. 60 ayes, 73 nays. The amendment is not adopted. There is another amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Flanagan moves to amend Senate File Number 550, the third engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A10. I
recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would ask for a roll call on the amendment.
A roll call being requested, and seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call.
Thank you. So what this amendment does is it adds back the University of Minnesota Duluth project to evaluate the microbial communities and nutrients associated with wild rice, so competing with vegetation, with the goal of restoring more wild rice and wild rice habitat. And it's pretty great that we all had these books delivered to us today, our Minnesota Blue Book. And if you turn to page 23, you will find that our state grain is at the top of the page, wild rice. And it mentions that American Indians in this state harvested wild rice for a long time. We still do. And one of the reasons that we landed in Minnesota as Native American people was because we migrated to where food grows on water. And we knew that this would be where our homeland should be established. And so one of the things that I think is great about wild rice or mandomin is that it brings all of us together as Native folks, as non-Native folks, around a shared value of our state grain. And I think we should be doing everything that we can and taking the LCCMR recommendation to study how we can ensure that we maintain wild rice, both for our local economy, but also to ensure that we continue our way of life and ability to harvest it. Thank you.
Discussion to the A10 amendment. Representative Heintzeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I'd appreciate a bill as I brought it to the House going into conference committee, so I'd encourage a no vote.
Further discussion? Seeing none, a roll call being requested, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. Clerk will close the roll. There being 60 ayes and 74 nays, the amendment is not adopted. There is another amendment at the desk. Clerk will report the amendment.
Hornstein moves to amend Senate File Number 550, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A2.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Hornstein, to report his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. First of all, I would like to request a roll call on the A2 amendment.
Roll call being requested, and seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Hornstein.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this amendment relates to restoring 6 separate projects that relate to solar energy. They primarily involve research, and this is an important and growing industry in our state. I handed an article out just last week from the Star Tribune indicating that this year alone we have had an 80% increase in solar capacity in Minnesota. And in fact, the article points out that we have gone from 37 megawatts to 447 megawatts of generating capacity just in the last 2 years alone. Some of these projects, XL projects in Marshall and Chisago County, Aurora, these are covering all regions of our state. They're a boon to our economy, and of course this is clean, renewable energy that not only is good for our economy but also our environment and helping our state reach our climate reduction or greenhouse gas emission reduction goals to assist in the fight on climate change. So members, these are projects that involve manufacturing research, battery storage research, looking at how we capture more thermal energy from solar. We have innovations in terms of new kinds of solar panel design and transmission upgrades, among other projects. University of Minnesota, other partners, Twin Cities campus, also Morris involved in this. So this is truly an example in the LCCMR bill of really tapping Minnesota know-how and Minnesota innovation that really has implications nationally and globally. So we can continue to be a leader in solar. This is what this amendment accomplishes. I hope for your green vote and support for this amendment.
Discussion to the A2 amendment. The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And first of all, there's a roll call on this amendment, right, Mr. Speaker?
Representative Garofalo, you are correct.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we do get everyone on record on this. So I want to thank my friends in the DFL for continuing your long, rich tradition of coming up with some of the most bizarre ideas in the area of energy. A while back, there was the peak oil theory, the idea that we didn't have any oil left in the world and we were running out, and the DFL marched out lack of science, lack of facts, and pushed that on us. Then they came up with the Made in Minnesota solar program, which I guess nowadays is better described as the Made in Taiwan solar program, because there's really only one manufacturer of these panels, where they make them in Taiwan, bring them over here, put some labels and brackets on them. But today, members, we have a new one. We have these solar-powered robots for weed control in the agriculture fields. So members, I would just encourage you to take a look at on the amendment, page 3, line 15 to 27. If you, maybe you've seen the movie Westworld, the TV show Westworld, and you can imagine all the connotations that come from this. But today the DFL is standing strong, not for roads, not for bridges, not for tax relief, but for solar-powered robots for weed control. Members, please vote accordingly to what you're consistent with your principles and your party. I expect everyone on this side is going to be voting no. Thank you.
Further discussion. Member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just wanted to remind the body and those watching that these are all projects that were brought through the council and were recommended by the council, bipartisan group, including some citizen members. So it's not some bizarre, crazy idea. It's something that passed through the council and was recommended. Thank you.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to Representative Garofalo's talk about crazy ideas, to someone who has sat through every one of his committee meetings, you know, those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones too far, just so you know. And actually, whether I agree with all of 6 of those or not, I won't bring that up. But the idea that we are looking at how we do robotics in this state is really, really important. Representative Garofalo, I know you like hockey, and I know you like to call yourself a geek, or a sports geek. So would Representative Garofalo yield to a question?
He will yield. Representative Mahoney.
Representative Garofalo, do you know which is the largest team sport in the state of Minnesota?
Representative Garofalo.
Lots of answers from the peanut gallery behind me. The first one was weed control. I thought it was trap shooting, Representative Mahoney. I thought trap shooting was now the largest team sport in Minnesota, but I'm willing to stand corrected on that.
Representative Mahoney.
You know, I could ask the gentleman in the speaker's chair, but I'd be inappropriate. It's robotics.
Further discussion. The member from Hennepin, Representative Hornstein.
And just to this, this is a project that was their partners are the University of Minnesota Morris, Toro Company, which is a Minnesota company. This is very important in terms of saving energy on the farm and you know, making it a lot easier to control weeds. And so that's really the purpose of this. Again, a fine Minnesota institution, Minnesota Morris and Toro Corporation teaming up on this. Again, the commission approved this. It was fully vetted. And again, this is an example of innovation. Robotics is certainly a serious effort here to move us forward in the agriculture sector. So labor saving and good for the environment. So this is an important project, and I hope you'll continue to vote yes for my amendment.
Further discussion. Member from Crow Wing, Representative Heintzeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just quickly to Representative Hornstein's comments. And I don't know if the representative knows this, but I've actually lived on solar for a time. And I think that solar definitely has its place. In this particular location, we're 2.5 miles off grid, and we will be there for weeks at a time. And on some days, like for example, when it's cloudy, you don't do laundry. You use that power very carefully. And you know, right here, we're in a situation, unfortunately, we're late in the process. Once the LCCMR committee had gone through and made their recommendations, along comes this other priority, and it is important, and I would unfortunately ask members to vote no to the amendment.
Further discussion? Seeing none and a roll call being requested, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. Clerk will close the roll. There being 61 ayes and 73 nays, the amendment is not adopted. There's another amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Bly moves to amend Senate File Number 550, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A3.
I call upon the member from Rice to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Speaker. So this amendment would restore funding for a research that would analyze climate data to aid local planning and implementation efforts. As we notice the heavy rains falling, and I don't know if you're hearing from some of your communities about concerns about flooding, but I am, and we've seen changes over the years in our rainfall. I also attended a conference several years ago with Greenlands and Blue Waters, and there was a presentation by a fellow from the USDA, John Baker, who said as farmers look at climate change coming our way, many of them might be thinking about longer growing seasons or whatever, but the most disruptive part of climate change is going to be rainfall and the way it's going to affect our water systems with floods and with droughts. And we need to understand those changes better. And so this research conducted at the University of Minnesota would try to better understand how climate change will be affecting many of the livelihoods that rely on climate and water and rainfall and weather. Climate trends are variable around the state and need to be understood with greater detail. This project would use the best available information to better predict climate trends on a more detailed geographic scale. It would not predict weather on a daily basis, but would look at trends in climate change. Having up-to-date trends in climate help farmers select the most suitable crops, crop rotations, nutrient management, pest management, planting, harvesting schedules, and even storage and marketing strategies. We also know that climate and change is affecting the migratory birds, which could also affect avian flu. We also know that it can affect other kinds of influenza and other things as we see changes happening in livestock elsewhere as well. So, by the way, I asked for a roll call on this amendment.
A roll call being requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call.
So I think this is a very, very important amendment. I think this research affects many of our outstates and rural districts, as well as smaller communities who need to prepare for the kinds of things that will be coming our way with climate change. So I hope that you will consider reinstating this research funding and ask for your support and a green vote. Thank you.
Discussion to the A3 amendment. Representative Grunhagen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise in opposition to this amendment and the global warming and so-called climate change, what I believe to be a scam, okay? I continue to read articles from both sides. This past summer, I read a book by 3 PhDs who are eminently qualified to evaluate climate or global warming, so-called scientific data. One was a climatologist, the other was an environmental scientist, and the third one was a physicist. The title of their book is Why Scientists Disagree About Global Warming. They basically discredit the major arguments, so-called scientific arguments about global warming, but I'll just touch on two. First is the 97% consensus and where that came from. There was a survey sent out to scientists back in 2008. Approximately 10,237 scientists in the U.S. received that survey. It had 2 questions on it. 3,146 of the scientists actually responded to the survey, or about 30%. Of those 3,146 scientists, 97% supported the global warming theory. So that's where the 97% comes from. It is not a global consensus, nor is it a majority of the scientists. The other thing they brought out quite clearly in this book, and I have a couple copies if anybody'd like to read it, is that between 2010 and 2013, the U.S. government subsidized global warming research with $64 billion, members. And what they bring out is that government money is corrupting the scientific method. In other words, the funding is used to promote research based on a political agenda. Now, this is not just my opinion. Stanford researchers have uncovered data and information on how scientists are corrupting and lying about their research in order to obtain government subsidies. Finally, members, you know, we're called climate deniers. Well, I would say that the scientists that go after these government grants to come up with so-called global warming research are climate liars, okay? You know, as far as predicting weather, if you ask one of them to predict what the weather will be 3 months from now, they can't do it. But they pretend to be able to predict what the weather patterns would be 20 years from now. It's a UN scam and lie, and I would urge members to vote down anything that even smells of the global warming climate change scam. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Blue Earth, Representative Considine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Garofalo, I see is off the field. What was it he was saying about crazy ideas?
The member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Representative Gruenhagen yield to a question?
He will yield. Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Gruenhagen, I just want to make sure I understood. It sounds like you're saying that if folks in the chamber acknowledge that climate change is real and is caused by human activity, they should vote in favor of this amendment. And if they vote against this amendment, then that's a sign that they agree with you and with what you're saying about climate change. Is that, am I understanding you correctly?
Representative Gruenhagen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Pinto, for that question. No, what I'm saying is that the scientific data by those scientists who have exposed and opposed the so-called global warming or climate change theory do not believe that the overwhelming evidence supports that. So it's not agreeing with me, it's agreeing with the scientists who expose the lies and deceit of the IPCC, the United Nations, and also the so-called scientists who get government grants to come up and manipulate the data to make it look like it's a global warming problem. Thank you.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Representative Gruenhagen, if I'm understanding you correctly, the things that you just said, people who vote red are indicating that they agree with those points about what you're saying about those scientists. But if people believe that climate change is, in fact, if they acknowledge that climate change is real and caused by humans, then in fact they would vote green on this amendment, if he will yield.
He will yield. Representative Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, I'm just saying that the climate changes every day all over the world. Okay.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So members, I think it's clear. In addition to, I want to make sure we're clear that the past few amendments that have brought up, these are projects that have been recommended by the citizens and legislators who spent a ton of time saying that this is how this money should be spent. This has been the consensus in past years with past legislatures. We generally accept those recommendations. I believe those have been accepted by the other body, if I can make reference to that. For some reason, last term and this term, we haven't been accepting those recommendations for several projects. This is one of those that was recommended, and I think we should follow Representative Gruenhagen's point. If you believe that climate change is, if you acknowledge that it's real and caused by human activity, and if you want to follow the recommendations of those people who we've asked to do this, you're going to vote green. If you vote no, then it sounds like you're disagreeing and you're agreeing with Representative Gruenhagen's points and what he has to say about the science regarding this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion. Representative Bly.
Thank you, Speaker. There is a difference between weather and climate, and I hope Representative Gruenhagen discovers that someday. But I hear from farmers that they want to know what's happening in our climate. They want to know so that they can prepare and get the crops in the ground that are best for the kinds of things that they can be thinking ahead, years ahead perhaps, to know what to predict. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with climate change, and I think scientists can help us get a better understanding so we're better prepared for that. Thank you. Please vote green.
The member from Sherburne, Representative Newberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I would like to rise, speak against this amendment. I was on the Committee Environment and Natural Resources last session, and we had an amendment that was similar to strip this type of language out. And I was asked to carry that amendment. And I did some research on this, just on how many times we've studied this. What the amendment here says, what Representative Bly would like to reinsert, is $411,000 to the University of Minnesota to produce localized climate information for statewide planning and implementation. Members, it doesn't take long to research this spending habit to find out that when I researched it last session, this kind of a study has been funded or sought after about every 8 months for about the last 6 years. If they can't figure this thing out, why are we keep throwing money down this hole? I think there's a better way to spend this money than to keep refunding the same studies over and over and over again. Now, members, this might be a little different if there was a large bubble over our state, but the air that's over China today is air that's over Minnesota about a week later. We don't live inside a bubble, that's just Minnesota. So having localized climate studies that cost this much money that we're trying to fund every 6 to 8 months, if you go back and look at it, I can get you the data offline if you want. We just keep pouring money into this for what? So members, it's a fiscally responsible thing to say no to this amendment.
The representative from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Well, I concur with Representative Neuberger here. We are chasing our tails with this expenditure of money, and members, tens of billions of dollars have been spent federally to chase this around and think that we as men and women are going to actually come up with a conclusion as to exactly what's going on in our environment, and then the audacity to predict what it's going to be tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, would Representative Bly yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Bly, can you tell us, okay, so you are proposing that we spend $411,000 of people's money to somehow, as far as I can tell, something around planning for local implementation efforts, somehow forecasting or maybe divining, I don't know what the future climate will be. How is this research in any way going to be able to tell us what the climate's going to be a year from now, 2 years from now, or 10 years from now?
Representative Bly.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Representative Drazkowski, for the question. Well, first of all, they use models to study climate far into the future. That's how they were able to, at first, to predict that we were in trouble and that we needed to do something about it. So, and it is something that's ongoing. It's not something that you just sort of study and then you know everything that's going to happen. We don't know everything that's going to happen. But we are already experiencing climate change now. It's happening. And it's important that we understand how it's changing and how we adjust to those changes. And those changes are particular to different parts of our state. They're not necessarily going to be the same everywhere in the state or everywhere in the world. But we're concerned about what's happening in Minnesota and happening to our constituents. And so when farmers come and they say, we want to know what to plan for, what's going to happen, or when cities come and say, are we going to continue to have these kinds of rain storms or these kinds of impacts that we face? And what can we do to prepare for them? What are the long-term trends that you study, the models that you look at, going to tell us about what's going to happen to our climate? It's not the same as weather. You know, we also use models to predict the weather from 1 week to the next or whatever it might be. But you look at the long-term changes and what's happening and many impacts are changing that climate as well. So the warming temperature and what that will do. I think one of the things that we've gathered is that there is more extreme weather that follows those climate changes, and we need to prepare for that and understand that better. And it's ongoing research. It's not something that you just figure out one time.
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Bly, I didn't think I really heard an answer in there, just that scientists are going to somehow model based on what our past was and then somehow predict from that. With this $411,000 of the people's money, of course, on top of the billions more that have been spent federally and the billions more that have been spent in this state and others collectively, but that they're somehow going to be able to model or predict the future. Well, Representative Bly, the scientists in the 80s said the same thing when they were talking about global cooling and trying to predict from the reductions in temperatures that they were experiencing then and modeling those. Representative Bly, members, many of us wonder about this. We wonder about, is the left just chasing their ideology with this or what? I don't think that's what we want to be doing with the people's money here. And so this is not an amendment we should support. Members, as global warming continues on Mars today, we need to quit spending money in ways like this that simply don't make sense. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Dakota, Representative Heintzeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Drazkowski, I'm encouraged that you are wondering. I'm encouraged, Representative Newberger, that you researched this, because that shows curiosity. It sure shows inquisitiveness. If you look at the amendment, the first word is analyzing, trying to find answers to that wonder, trying to find data. Now, you've drawn conclusions. You had the research, Representative Newberger, you researched it, and you drew conclusions based on what you found. That would be the scientific method. Wonder. Now, a conclusion could be, I'm not going to think about wondering anymore. I'm not going to be curious anymore. What we have in front of us with this amendment and previous amendments and other amendments is research. It's science. It's wonder. So why can't we ask the questions? Are we afraid of the answers? So we're not going to fund the questions? We're not going to fund the research? That's what I'm hearing. We don't want to fund this government grant paid for by the people of Minnesota, analyzing climate data to aid local planning and implementation efforts. Research, science. It's a worthwhile investment, just like the solar research was. Looking for answers. Sometimes we get answers we don't agree with, but that's the wonder of research. I'd encourage a yes vote for the Bly amendment.
The member from Pope, Representative Anderson P.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Speaker and members. Yeah, you know, I'm a farmer, and of course weather is important to a farmer. And the one thing I find interesting about this amendment, Representative Bly talked about we need to do this to analyze long-term trends in weather and climate. Yet this is one-time funding for 1 year that has to be spent by the year 2020. I don't think we can study long-term weather trends because of this amendment.
The member from Crow Wing, Representative Heintzeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just quickly, a couple of things. Representative Hansen mentioned that we're not going to fund warming research. And to those folks watching at home, just to be clear, assessing the release of mercury and sulfur on aquatic communities, $300,000 in the first year from the trust fund to the boards of regents to the University of Minnesota to determine the effects of increased temperatures. So we are doing the very best we can to try to fund two priorities here, those that were recommended by the LCCMR board and CREP. And in this particular study, in this particular case, CREP is a higher priority. Members, please vote no to the amendment.
There being no further discussion, a roll call being requested, the clerk will take the roll on the A3 amendment. Clerk will close the roll. There being 59 ayes and 75 nays, the amendment is not adopted. There is another amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Sundin moves to amend Senate File Number 550, the third engrossment, as amended, and the amendment is coded A4.
I call upon the member from Pine, Representative Sundin, to report his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Oh, what's going on? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to request a roll call in the A4.
Roll call being requested, and seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call.
Mr. Speaker and members, as we know, the goal of this bill is to address critical environmental concerns that are shared by all of us. Air pollution, water pollution, uncontrolled population growth, and climate change. These are the issues that are going to define our generation. My amendment would use $300,000 of the lottery funds to assist youth programs that are engaging our young people to conserve our environment and combat the damaging effects of climate change. This amendment would empower the DNR Commissioner to work with Climate Generation, founded by famous Arctic explorer Will Steger, to conduct forums, workshops, and trainings to help engage young people in their effort to address our climate impacts on the planet and find ways to reduce that harm for future generations. This appropriation has a clear end date and is not ongoing. It's abundantly clear, and scientists do agree. I'd like to thank Representative Gruenhagen for confirming that 90% of the scientists that do care responded and agree that climate change is one of the most critical challenges facing the survival of our species. As a parent and a grandparent, I also care. I think one of the most fundamental long-term ways we can work to address this problem is by engaging our young people and empowering them to find solutions. If you need convincing, just ask Will Steger about the rapidly increasing rate by which polar ice caps are melting, glaciers are disappearing, and weather is becoming more extreme in our lifetimes. These extreme changes in our climate underlie every challenge we face as a nation and a global community. Climate extremes are causing mass displacement of human beings, destabilizing democratic governments around the world, crippling economies around the world through infrastructure repair costs, and it's accelerating the decline and extinction of animal and plant species throughout the globe, including here in Minnesota, from moose to the monarchs. This amendment is also supported by another legislative body that need not be mentioned. Mr. Speaker, we need to meet this challenge together, and I feel that the mission of this bill, with its shared commitment to the environment, fits perfectly with the climate changes we face. This is one small drop in the bucket, and one small way we can engage our young people to meet this challenge. I ask for a green yes vote.
Discussion to the A4 amendment. Representative Heintzeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Similar topic, and I would again appreciate a no vote.
Seeing no further discussion, a roll call being requested, the clerk will take the roll on the A4 amendment. Clerk will close the roll. There being 59 ayes and 75 nays, the amendment is not adopted. There is another amendment at the desk. Clerk will report the amendment.
Hansen moves to amend Senate File number 550, the third engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A5.
I recognize the member from Dakota, Representative Hansen, to report his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd ask for a roll call on the A5 amendment.
Roll call being requested, and seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. The amendment is pretty short. I want you to go to the bill and look on page 29. This amendment would delete the no net gain provision, the policy that was added in here to the recommendations for the Legislative Commission on Minnesota Resources. Now, this is policy that has been added to a number of pieces of legislation moving through the Minnesota legislature this year. I've also handed out a map so that you can see the counties located in whole or in part north of US Highway 2. Now, at first blush, if I was being parochial, it might be good to have this provision, because if land isn't being acquired north of Highway 2, it would be acquired somewhere else, perhaps in my district or somebody else's district, if I was being parochial. But we are sent here as state representatives, and when you look at the map, it actually divides the state, literally dividing the state, dividing us, and saying we will have a different set of requirements here. If there was a unique piece of property that could be acquired in that area north of Highway 2, it would have a different set of rules. So although this might be tempting for each of us looking at our districts, it sets the precedent for continued division. Continued division is not what I think we were sent here to do. Voting for the A5 amendment will remove this divisive piece, literally dividing the state, and have the recommendations go forward.
Discussion to the A5 amendment. Representative Heintzeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just wanted to point out again that this provision is specifically related to property or counties north of Highway 2. And there's more support for this than folks might think, and I'd appreciate a green vote.
The member from Mahnomen, Representative Green.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this may sound strange, but I'm going to thank Representative Hansen for bringing this forward, because it gives me one more opportunity to set some facts out. And I will tell you that every time this subject comes up, I gain support. I have sent out some letters from counties that have already filed no net gain. I have other counties that have them coming, but they had to wait for their county boards to meet. If you look at the amount of land that has been purchased and lost in Minnesota to public ownership and now is no longer taxable, Minnesota itself has 17% of that land. The federal government has 8. If you add in our lakes that are all public waters and can't be taxed, that's another 4. Puts us at 29%, and that does not include nonprofits. And so if you add in the nonprofits, I'm pretty sure we'd be getting really close to 1/3 of the state that's no longer taxable. And what does that mean for us? In counties like Mahnomen County, which is a very poor county and is 25% non-taxable. Clearwater County, almost 37% non-taxable. Beltrami County, over 70% non-taxable, close to 80. And it gets worse up in the Iron Range, and you'll see 2 resolutions from both Lake and St. Louis counties. And what does this mean for us? You know, when we lose this property and it comes off the tax rolls, everybody else's taxes go up to make up the difference. And so we're seeing a huge increase now in properties that are being lost to tax forfeit, because people on fixed incomes can no longer afford to pay the rising property taxes. This last year, Mahnomen County had 19 notices sent out for additional tax forfeits. Clearwater County, 37. Becker County, 67. It's a huge problem for us, huge problem. And this amendment does not mandate anything. This simply says if county boards, at the approval of the people in their counties, say we just can't take any more, then they can file a no net gain. If at that time the DNR or other agencies feel that there's a very important piece of land that needs to be preserved, and they can sell other property to make up the difference. And that would work well for us too, because some of these properties that they may want to purchase are huge tracts. And they have many tracts that are 40, 80, 160 acres that small families or beginning families, people would love to have, could they afford it. The other thing that is happening with the increased loss of property in our district is it's driving up our values, the property values, because the less land you have, the more valuable it is. And there again, it takes it out of reach of young people who want to come and start families. So if Representative Heintzeman would feel more comfortable if this was statewide, I'm all for that too. So we can go that route as well. But this is important to us, and it's going to keep coming back till it passes. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Representative Heintzeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I meant to say vote with Representative Green. So if there's any confusion, members, and I'm sorry, Representative Heintzeman, what I was trying to say was that there's more support for this provision that would allow counties to enact a no net gain policy than you would think. Members, unfortunately, please vote red on the amendment.
Seeing no further discussion and a roll call being requested, the clerk will take the roll on the A5 amendment. Clerk will close the roll. There being 56 ayes and 77 nays, the amendment is not adopted. There is another amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Becker-Finn moves to amend Senate File Number 550, the third engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A6.
Call upon the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and there is an amendment to the amendment. I'd like to move that.
The clerk will report the amendment to the amendment.
Becker-Finn is moving to amend her amendment to Senate File Number 550, the third engrossment as amended, and the amendment to the amendment is coded A7.
Representative Becker-Finn, to your amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The A7 amendment to the amendment is adding back a project that was included in the original commission recommendations. This project would provide for workshops and outreach to protect bald eagles and other birds from lead poisoning. And this is not the first time we have talked about lead ammunition and lead poisoning this year, but I did want to kind of rewind a little bit and explain why this issue is important.
So here's the deal for those who don't hunt. You're out deer hunting. You're using the usual bullets you've used for years, you've been buying and hunting with for years. They contain lead. Lead is poison. When you shoot a deer, that lead bullet hits the deer and fragments into a lot of tiny pieces, up to 498 fragments from one bullet. And most of those fragments are smaller than you're able to see normally, but you can see them on an X-ray. And I do have something, an article that they're passing out, that the top left shows a picture of an X-ray where you can see the little flecks of all those fragments of what a lead bullet looks like when you take an X-ray of something. It's a deer that's been shot with a lead bullet. And those fragments can travel up to 14 inches to each side of the bullet channel in a deer or other animal that you're shooting. And those fragments, though very small, are still lead and still poison. So the next, and warning to the vegetarians and vegans out here, but the reality for my non-hunting friends is that after you shoot a deer, you gut it. So you leave that gut pile out in the woods or field, and animals come eat it. That's nature. But if you shot that deer with a lead bullet, you are also leaving those tiny poisonous lead fragments in that gut pile for those animals to eat. And now you're poisoning the birds and the animals the animals that would come to that gut pile. And one of the birds most harmed by ingesting these lead fragments is the bald eagle, our national symbol of freedom and a spiritual symbol for many of us. What this project would do, it's a great project. It's being done by the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota. They work together with the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association, Conservation Federation, several other groups, including the DNR, Pollution Control Agency. And so what this would do is provide some funding so they can do a project to do outreach to, they're hoping at least 1,200 hunters, providing education and alternatives to lead ammunition. Because there are non-lead options, many of them produced right here in Minnesota. So if you care about addressing this issue of lead in our environment and limiting that amount of lead that is ingested by our wildlife, including the bald eagle, you should vote green for this amendment. Thanks.
Discussion to the amendment to the amendment. Representative Becker-Finn.
Sorry, roll call, please.
A roll call being requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion to the amendment to the amendment. Seeing none, a roll call being requested. Clerk will take the roll on the amendment to the amendment. Clerk will close the roll. There being 59 ayes and 74 nays, the amendment to the amendment is not adopted. Members, we are back on the A7 amendment. Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr.
Excuse
Speaker.
me, the A6.
Mr. Speaker, I would withdraw the A6 amendment.
Representative Becker-Finn withdraws the A6 amendment. There is another amendment at the desk. Clerk will report the amendment.
Wagenius moves to amend Senate File Number 550, the third engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A8.
I recognize the author of the amendment from Hennepin, Representative Wagenius, to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, we've been talking about science projects, and this amendment restores 5 of the science projects that were deleted in the House Environment Committee. These were part of the recommendations made by the LCCMR as part of their balance, and you will see that these come from different parts of the state. So I'll just tell you very briefly about each one of them. The University of Minnesota at Crookston would use Minnesota freshwater sponges to, among other things, teach students about how to do science research and help us understand Minnesota sponges. I'm guessing most of us didn't even know that sponges actually grew in Minnesota freshwater. A second one is the Minnesota Zoo would restore native mussels to 3 rivers, the Cannon, the Cedar, and the Mississippi. Mussels are a key indicator of the health of a river, and they are a benefit to the river because they will clean it up. There are 2 University of Minnesota Morris projects that folks have discussed before. One is helping dairy farmers with solar and whether it be of use to them on their dairy farm. And the second is the robots for weed control. What wasn't mentioned in the original or in the earlier discussion we had is the intention is that these robots would be manufactured in Minnesota, and I expect a lot of you know that we do have a very robust robot manufacturing in Minnesota. There's another science project. This one is very small, very inexpensive, and it's the Headwaters Science Center in Bemidji. I told you I was going to go all over the place in the state. This is just to accelerate science for middle school students focused on water quality, watershed evaluation, and aquatics invasive research in northwestern Minnesota. The 5th is a little bit different. There's a scientific and natural area project that was recommended for funding at $4.5 million. Of that, 2/3 of it is for restoration work, but 1/3 is for feed-tidal acquisition. And it would acquire for the state about 250 acres of scientific and natural area. And that would come up to be about $6,000 an acre. Keep that in mind. What's particularly good about this proposal is we would both preserve rare and endangered species in Minnesota, and it's very likely that this particular land would be available for hunting. So scientific and natural areas are part of our outdoor recreation system, and 89% of them do have some form of hunting. I told you to keep the number of 6,000 per acre in mind, because if you look at the proposal for CREP, which I like CREP, and I have worked for CREP funding, but at $500 million for 60,000 acres, that means each CREP acre on average would cost $8,333. So for bang for the buck, acquiring scientific and natural areas would be less expensive. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask for a roll call.
Roll call being requested and seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion to the A8 amendment. Representative Heintzeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Wagenius, I don't dislike any of those projects. It's just simply a situation where CREP is a higher priority. Members, please vote no.
Further discussion? Seeing none, a roll call being requested Clerk will take the roll on the A8 amendment. Clerk will close the roll. There being 61 ayes and 72 nays, the amendment is not adopted. There is another amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Wagenius moves to amend Senate File number 550, the third engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A9.
I call upon the member from Hennepin to report her amendment. Representative Wagenius.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I have been fortunate to be a member of LCCMR for the past 2 years and was part of the committee that pulled together this compromise package, and it was a compromise, and it did balance projects across the state. What this amendment does is put back the projects that were taken out. And I'm going to just go over the projects that were taken out in big picture. I'm not certainly going to go over every one of them, but there are a couple of themes that I want you to know. Keeping in mind that we're substituting in here funding for CREP at $8,333 an acre. There are 4 projects that were taken out, all having to do with land acquisition, either in fee or an easement. And in each case, the land acquisition is less, costs less. So there's more actual bang for the buck in the LCCMR projects. So let me just give you, I talked a little bit about just before the scientific and natural areas that are not only preserving rare and endangered species, but they're also likely to be huntable, and they are at $6,000 an acre. There's another project that would require an interest in land, and this is easements, and it's not a fee. And for $1.6 million, it would acquire 335 acres with a cost per acre of an average of $4,931. I'm sure that you all know that only 1% of native prairie remains, and there's real question about whether native prairie will maintain over the long haul. So preserving what we have left is critical. There are, in this particular prairie bank easement project, there's also a lot of money for restoration, and that comes in at $3,500 an acre. Another of the recommended land projects would, this would be DNR, would acquire 373 acres within the boundaries of state parks, and that would, is coming in at about $4,000 an acre. And the last one is for the metropolitan area. I told you there was balance in the original proposals, and that is for the acquisition of 197 acres within the boundaries of metropolitan parks, and that is for $7,000 an acre on average. Those are the land projects. One of the projects that that I was going to talk about, but Representative Bly talked a lot about, were the projects that work well for farmers. There are the couple at the U of M in Morris, and there is the one that actually takes satellite data and brings it down to a 3x3 square mile, so folks will know about the potential for extreme rainfall, the potential for flooding, and the potential for how aquifers are actually refilled. And over the long haul, farmers really need those aquifers to be refilled. And a couple of more things just to tell you about more bang for the buck. Some of the recommended projects provide education opportunities for students, and others provide volunteer opportunities. Altogether, the deleted provisions would deny over 332,000 students an additional opportunity for education, and 270,000 Minnesotans would not have the opportunities to benefit from environmental outreach. That's the big picture total. I'll give you one of the examples that is within this total, and that is 530 Great River Greening volunteers who would restore 250 acres in the metro area. And that's, of course, one of the proposals that was deleted. There are just a couple more. Well, we talked about the University of Minnesota at Duluth and the wild rice, very unique project. The freshwater sponges, again, a very unique project. And the Minnesota Zoo, another unique project, all deleted here. So with that, members, I think the bang for the buck is restoring the projects that the LCCMR originally recommended. And I would ask for a green vote and a roll call. Go ahead.
A roll call being requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion. The member from Brown, Representative Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I served on LCCMR when these recommendations were assembled and voted on. And I'd like to make a couple of points. One, we've heard a lot about the possible use of bonding dollars for the CREP program. That's fine. There will probably be some bonding dollars. There are some in the bill. But there's no way that even at the $30 million that's been recommended, that there will be adequate funds there to meet the need for CREP. This is a large program. Total of funding from the state to leverage the federal money would be $150 million. So even if we did 30 in the bonding bill, we would not have nearly enough to meet the federal match. There's also been quite a bit of talk about relative expense of purchasing land. The state's contribution to these purchases under CREP is only 30%. So even at the $8,333 figure, the state would only be spending $2,500 to get those acres into a permanent easement program. The CREP program came up rather suddenly, wasn't on the table when these recommendations were made. It's a high priority of the governor and does have the impact of protecting critical lands potentially all across the state with a voluntary program. Finally, I would just like to make sure folks understand that we take a vote as an LCCMR committee, and the vote on these particular recommendations very nearly failed. We had, if one more person would have voted no, these recommendations would not be before us today. And in fact, when Senator Tori Westrom voted he wanted it put in the record that he was reluctantly supporting the recommendations and hoped there would be some improvements by LCCMR. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members.
Further discussion to the A9 amendment. Representative Heintzeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, please vote red on the amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, a roll call being requested, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. Clerk will close the roll. There being 58 ayes and 75 nays, the amendment is not adopted. There are no more amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill as amended its third reading.
Senate File Number 550, third reading, as amended.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill as amended. Representative Wagenius.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a few words on this. What Representative Torkelson failed to mention about the consensus process that went on through LCCMR as we added things into the package, there generally was consensus, and it does take a supermajority to put a package out. But the real thing is not LCCMR members. It is two things. The LCCMR package, as originally provided, was balanced across the state, and it provides a lot more bang for the buck. And on for those two reasons, I would ask you to vote no on this bill and hope we can do a lot better in conference committee than this particular proposal.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I just want to say thank you to Representative Heintzeman for the fine work that he and his team have done putting this bill together. And I ask everyone to vote green. Thank you.
Further discussion. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Sometimes the most dangerous question is why? And searching for answers involves a scientific method. Here we go again with the Legislative Commission on Minnesota Resources, where science projects are deleted in favor of another project. Now, we may agree that the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program is a good project, and I think if you look at the discussion and the debate we've had throughout this session, there's a variety of pots of money. Different councils, different commissions, different groups, different opportunities. Every member has voted one way or another on which pot of money they think money should come from for CREP. Some think it should come from bonding, some from outdoor heritage, some from clean water, legacy. some from LCCMR. Why is this source of funds not appropriate? Traditionally, the lottery dollars have been used for more science. Now, there have been some acquisitions that have occurred, but it is always the lottery funds that seem to get tinkered with the most. And they seem to get tinkered with on both sides. But the science projects relating to solar, to climate, to lead always come out of the package when the Republicans are in charge. Solar, climate, and lead. Solar, climate, and lead always get removed. And so, how do we fix this? Do we just keep repeating this year after year, where we have our own affinities of where we think money should come from? When the voters have authorized the creation of these funds for certain purposes. I think it's been creative this year to see the interlocking sources of dollars and interlocking sources of agencies and funds. I will give you credit for that. But because it's creative, does that make it right? I think, members, a no vote on this gives an opportunity for a reset. I agree with you, Representative Torkelson, that I don't think there's going to be a lot of matching money there for the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program after October 1st. But the bonding bill that was brought up yesterday only had $10 million in it, not the $30 million. So hopefully we can achieve some compromise and allow the research that came from the process, the research into solar, the research into lead, the research into climate, the analysis, the questions to be asked so that we can get some answers and that we can provide a path for a variety of good things for Minnesota. I'd ask for a no vote on this bill to start over.
Further discussion? The member from Crow Wing, Representative Heintzeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, 5 years ago, I was digging rain gardens for a local lake association and a manager on a watershed district. It's been quite a process to now come to a day like today and have the opportunity to carry a bill that is going to be impacting folks all across the state of Minnesota, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And when I was originally approached if I should or would be interested in carrying this bill, I, to begin with, was a little concerned about that. I don't often get up and I listen to a lot of the debate, but I'm glad to be able to participate. I'm glad to be able to work on this. And I know that there are differences in the opinions as to what should or shouldn't be in the bill, but I think in the end we're going to see a lot of green on that board. I think there's a lot of things that people are going to be able to support here, and I think that it's good for the state of Minnesota. Members, please support my bill.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. Clerk will close the roll. Portman votes No. There being 82 ayes and 52 noes, the bill as amended is passed and its title agreed to.